Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider presented by FanDuel. Matthew Coller here as always, and we got a lot to get to tonight, but also a lot of open space for questions, comments, thoughts, feelings on the Minnesota Vikings as they get ready to play against the Baltimore Ravens. And just being out at TCO Performance Center today, Kevin O'Connell talk, JJ McCarthy, several players about an interesting subject actually to do with Andrew Van Ginkel, but general feeling around the team is I think that a weight was really lifted by this win against the Detroit Lions. I mean, just talking with Blake Cashman today, listening to him, and I don't think any players are ever going to come out and say we made it, we're the best. But what Blake Cashman said today really stood out to me. He said when we have all of our players out there, there's just a calm about us, knowing that we can communicate with each other. And I thought, yeah, that's really an Andrew Van Ginkel comment because he's such a great high IQ guy, such a great communicator. But I think that goes across the roster when you have the offensive line that you practiced together with, you have the defensive line, the linebackers, the Harrison Smith, everybody on the field that you practice day after day after day with through OTAs, minicamp, and so forth. And then you get everybody almost back out on the field. It's like, oh yeah, we were good at this and we thought we were going to be good at this. It was a very confident team in training camp. And you got a sense for that talking with Cashman today. So if we're doing a little vibe check, as we often have that come up sometimes on the show, but that's kind of what it feels like with this team, as if they're looking around saying we're finally the version of ourselves that they're supposed to be. And now the question is, will they add one more to the mix? Because they did not do anything at the trade deadline. Kevin O'Connell said today that they felt like getting guys back from injury was basically like making trades or making new player acquisitions, but they are scheduled on Friday, I believe this was according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, to have Asante Samuel Jr. stop by TCO Performance Center. Today, Samuel Jr. visited with the Carolina Panthers. He has the Packers on the list, a couple of other teams, and he will visit with the Vikings as well. So this potentially could be somewhat of a game changer if they can get Asante Samuel here. Now, I know he's coming off of a major surgery, doesn't have a training camp, doesn't have practice with a team. So asking him to show up and be a starter or something right away would be a lot. But the idea would be, if the Vikings could get Asante Samuel Jr. to sign here, that eventually he works into the lineup. I don't know what a timeline would be. They'd have to sign him first, and then we would have to ask some people what's the timeline for him actually getting back on the field. But it seems like he let the entire recovery process happen from his injury and surgery, and now is ready to go. And that's why he's going on this Asante Samuel Jr. tour. And clearly a bunch of teams around the NFL want to get him on their rosters, and I'm sure want to have him in their building and do their medical checks and so forth. And so the Vikings are on that list. And with Samuel Jr., for him in 2023, it looked like he had really taken a big jump while playing for the Los Angeles Chargers. His first couple of seasons were just okay. He had played in 2022, 971 snaps, had a 63.6 PFF grade. Not bad in coverage overall that season. Allowed a 97.6 QB rating against, certainly not terrible. And then in 2023, that's when he had the breakout season, was one of the higher graded players in coverage for the Chargers, 73.9 overall PFF grade, which puts you in not the first tier, but the next tier down from that. It's hard to be a good corner. Had 11 pass breakups that year, allowed still a 98 passer rating into his coverage, but 11 pass breakups is a lot for a corner. So a lot of playmaking there. And then last year, didn't play that much, got hurt, he's out, and now he is back and ready to sign with the team. And if you're the Vikings, this is one of the things that you feel like is a strength overall, which is your ability to get players to sign with your team. You bring them to TCO Performance Center, you have them talk with the coaches, you have I don't know how much communication you can have if you're doing a workout with other players and things like that. But word gets around the NFL about the culture of the Minnesota Vikings, and so often players end up signing here. But I'm not saying that I know which way it's going to go. I'm sure that he doesn't know which way at this point it's going to go, and it may come down to how much guaranteed money can you get, what is the future outlook. But with the Vikings, I think we know that the cornerback position is one where they could really use an extra body. Jeff Okudah is out. Fabian Moreau did a really good job for them last week. But the depth, if either Byron Murphy Jr. or Isaiah Rodgers were to get hurt, the depth is pretty concerning. Dwight McGlothern has essentially never really played in the NFL, just a handful of snaps. Morrow has been average to below average most of the time. He's had to play in a main starting type of role. So you don't have a lot of depth there, and you would love to have some sort of rotation or matchups. And again, probably not right away, but maybe as you get into the final stretch of the season. And then in an ideal world, I think you'd be looking to sign Samuel Jr. to a multi-year contract. And I don't know if that's his goal or not. Maybe his goal is to get a 1-year deal, show everybody he could play, then be a free agent again, help someone down the stretch. I don't know. But if you could sign him to a multi-year contract, assuming that you feel really good about where he's at medically, then you could be talking about having a player who is 26 years old going into the future, and it would be like adding a free agent prematurely in free agency for next year. So there's a lot of work to be done here. I don't know what Asante Samuel Jr.'s timeline is going to be like, but the fact is the Vikings are on the list. They're going to at least meet with him, and then we'll see from there. But it feels like, even though he did have this big injury, if you can get a 26-year-old player who's a former second rounder that proved that they can play in the NFL as a starting corner, that would be a pretty big boost for you. And let's see, where did he usually play? Almost exclusively on the outside as a corner, which is good for the Vikings as well, because, I mean, you could have, if he were to come here, if he were to be good to play fairly quickly, you could play him on the outside, bump in Byron Murphy Jr., and not always have to have the 3 safety looks on the field, as they have had to do a lot this year when Jeff Okudah's out there. And now if Theo Jackson doesn't play this week, you might be talking about playing Fabian Moreau a lot and Byron Murphy in the nickel a lot, or maybe Jay Ward is out there quite often, which I like where Jay Ward is at. But just as you go down the stretch, it would just give another option, and then potentially into the future where Murphy is locked in, Rodgers is on a short-term contract, and then it's kind of shrugs after that. Solidifying it would be a big boost to this team in its weakest position. But there are other teams that are on the list. Carolina's got a winning record. The Packers got a winning record. I think maybe San Francisco was on this as well. They've got a winning record. So there will be quite a competition for him. But at very least, you're on the list. I feel like we've talked about this guy for I don't know how long, going all the way back to the beginning of free agency when we were not aware of his health situation. And then as it went along throughout the summer, it was like, is he gonna sign? What's going on there? And then we didn't really find out until later in the process that it was going to be the middle of the season before he found a job. But that is absolutely something to watch for Asante Samuel Jr. Let's take a look at the injury report here, and then we'll get into some other things. And of course, your questions, comments, start throwing them in. What's on your mind right now with the Vikings? We'll get the FanDuel question of the day in just a second. But on the injury report, the biggest name, Aaron Jones, not practicing today, dealing with not only the shoulder, but also a toe injury. And this is one to watch going forward because Kevin O'Connell said that it came across as optimistic about Aaron Jones and made it sound like they had avoided major serious shoulder injury with Jones. But that doesn't necessarily mean, hey, he's going to play this week. It might mean, hey, he's not going to go on IR. So we'll have to see Thursday and Friday if he gets out there. And I think what we saw last week against Detroit was a bit of a reminder from Aaron Jones. This is why they need him pretty badly. A bit of a reminder of, oh yeah, That's right. That was the Aaron Jones that we saw at the beginning of the season last year. The explosiveness, the hands, the ability to read blocks in front of him, and the Vikings run blocking really looked like a team that could move some bodies now that it's almost at 100%. It's at 80%. But with Christian Darrisaw and Donovan Jackson playing next to each other on the left side and Fries and O'Neal on the right side, like that's a lot of dudes that are known as quality run blockers. And I think on the left side specifically, if you want to run outside zone type stuff with those two athletes, Aaron Jones has been a specialist at that for his entire career. He just had that jolt that maybe very early in the season we didn't see so much from him. He didn't have that active of a training camp, which I think is a long-term play and probably the right one, but it just, does he really have that same burst like he had last year? Did he lose it? Is he old now? And then against Detroit, yeah, that's it. And I think we've also seen from Jordan Mason, as good as he's been at times, we've also seen some of the maybe shortcomings. I think he needs to be in a certain type of system where if you're running outside zone, you have to have a center that can get a reach block. And I don't know that that's Blake Brandel. So you have to make some adjustments there. And we just haven't seen quite as much from Jordan Mason. The other concern would be that Mason is not a good pass protector. And look, it's really, really hard to block Jack Campbell. It's extremely hard. He's a great player. And just saying, hey, he's not any good at it is probably not fair. But compared to Aaron Jones, who has been an above average pass blocker a lot of times throughout his career, I think he's very good at it in terms of identifying the right person and then just kind of throwing his body as much as he can. But I think they really need CJ Ham back for some of those third down pass pro type of reps where it's like having an extra offensive lineman in there. That's where they've missed CJ Ham on some of these plays. But asking Jordan Mason to do it all, not always the easiest thing. So they're going to hope, I suppose, that Aaron Jones comes back. But it could be a big miss in the backfield for him. And I wonder about Xavier Scott, Cam Akers. We haven't seen really any of Cam Akers outside of that touchdown pass that he threw. But will we see, if Aaron Jones isn't in there, will we see more of Xavier Scott, who got some opportunities, made a couple of plays, and then didn't see much more of him? Or could it be the time where they actually do pull out, hey, it's Cam Akers time, buddy? It always, at some point, it always becomes Cam Akers time. And I wonder if Aaron Jones can't play if that's what happens. But last week was proof that they need him in there for a lot of those key pass protection downs, and they need him in there for the hands. I mean, he's just exceptional. And there's some plays where they line up Jordan Mason as a wide receiver. It's just not the same as it is with Aaron Jones, who can catch passes and run routes like he's a wide receiver. So they need him in, but also you don't want to risk Aaron Jones if he needs another week. You'd much rather have him down the stretch if he needs another week to recover. So we'll see on that one, but that could be something that sets them back a little bit offensively from where they were early in that Lions game, where Jones is just, he goes out, catches a check down, and has a few successful runs and catches the swing pass. And you're going, whoa, yeah, he can be a quarterback's best friend. And really, when you go back, and I know we've made some of the comparisons to Jordan Love's first year with JJ McCarthy, who was his best friend in the backfield in the second half of that season, I don't think it was any mistake that Love started to play his best football in 2023 when Aaron Jones started to get healthy. So Jones, a DNP, Theo Jackson did not practice, Jeff Okudah, Josh Oliver still didn't practice, rest for Harrison Smith. CJ Ham was limited, so maybe there's a chance there. Will Fries also limited, along with Josh Metellus, Jalen Redmond, and a full participant, Christian Darrisaw, which feels big. I think maybe he'll get his day of rest tomorrow. We'll see about that. But usually it's been 1 day of rest or 1 day not practicing. But for him to come back from playing the full game, practice in full, a very good sign for Christian Darrisaw to be 100% going forward, or as close as he's going to be this year coming off of that knee injury. Now, here's a curious one. Can't say I've ever seen this one before. So each day from the Vikings, we get an email and it's got the injury report on it, right? And so, we're standing there in the locker room and we pull it up and we're kind of taking a look. Okay, going over the Vikings players and wait a minute, is there a mistake here? Is there something that has gone awry? What is happening? The Baltimore Ravens list no one on their injury report. Nobody. Now, I know they played on Thursday night, and so they've got a little bit of an extra bye. But for a team that was just penalized for messing around with the injury report and Lamar Jackson, to have nobody on it, nobody missed not a single player on the team had a toe, a foot, a hammy, a contact lens, nothing for the Baltimore Ravens. So I don't know how much we're going to get in terms of the Ravens telling everybody about their injuries going into this game. But I don't know. Maybe they're just going to pay the fines. It seems impossible, even though you've just played on Thursday, that you could have no one on your injury report when you return to practice the following Wednesday. But hey, congratulations to them. I guess what we'll be seeing is two teams that suffered a lot of injuries early in the season that now are getting back to full health. So one more thing. We've got JJ McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell both talked at podiums today, and then I'll get to the Andrew Van Ginkel thing, which was kind of interesting inside the locker room. But the main subject coming out of the game against Detroit is that if JJ McCarthy had been accurate on 2 or 3 more passes in that game, we're talking about one heck of a performance. It was still a very good performance overall. And I gave him a pretty high score. It wasn't, I know some of the comments wanted A pluses or whatever, but let's be fair about the performance. There were some throws, and he said this as well, that he would really like back. And so Kevin O'Connell talked and is sort of giving you a QB school of his own about how he views the arm talent, the accuracy, and all that with JJ McCarthy and making that growth step building off of that game in Detroit.
What, from an accuracy standpoint, with some of those throws, what is required to be accurate?
Yeah, I think so much of it comes from, the understanding of just the amount of RPMs you have to put on the throw. And he's got the ability, high level, to, throw the ball very hard. But you guys have heard me talk about a lot of things in regards to things I look for in quarterbacks, and arm strength is normally not on the podium as far as the top things you're talking about. The most important thing is, as he learned on a few throws the other day, both completions he had that were critical, the long throw to Addison, really either one of the longer completions to Addison. But then also, are we giving guys a chance for run after catch as well when we've married the run in the pass and set up a play pass with a chance for an explosive? It doesn't just have to be a, catch and get back up and get 21 yards. It can be a 30, 40-yard catch and run. So how many times can we just, and a lot of those plays are relatively low on the scale of difficulty, and then it becomes, the consistency of not only being accurate on this throw and this throw, but then, it's every single throw, every single play where when we get that consistency from him, which I think he's definitely capable of, different variations, and that's what the most important thing is for accuracy. And then once you start getting comfortable using that, then you got to get comfortable. Something catches your eye, you got to throw it to a place where a guy's going. And if you're not going to throw it hard, you got to then, adjust for that in the type of throw you use. So I think it's all part of his development.
So there you go, Kevin O'Connell kind of breaking it down. He referenced a specific play where McCarthy threw out in front of Justin Jefferson. It was about 118 miles an hour on the radar gun, and it knocked Jefferson to the ground as he was trying to catch it. And that was one where I don't know if they would have gotten 40 yards, but if you put some touch on it and you hit him right in the breadbasket, full speed running, he had a lot of room because they had caught the Lions on a play action and there was a lot of space there. So maybe he does dodge a tackle and so forth. And I think the right word there from Kevin O'Connell is consistency, because that's where the reps come in. What you saw against Chicago and what you saw against Detroit was that McCarthy is capable of making very accurate throws, right on point. There's 5, 6 that you could point to that you go, yeah, that's exactly it. That's right on. That's dead eye accurate. Of course, the throw to Naylor at the end is the most notable, but there's a handful of others that were really impressive. It's there. And the decision making was largely there as well. It's just getting that throwing technique right. And there's an out route to Jefferson that turns into the incompletion that should have been a completion. And that's one where, as soon as Jefferson's coming out of his break, the ball should be into his hands at that point, running full speed toward the sideline. He shouldn't have to turn around, kind of wait for it, and then it's thrown a million miles an hour and then dive for it. Like, these are little timing things and technique things that should come along. And that's what we're going to look for on a week-to-week basis. I don't think anyone expects McCarthy to get 10% better against the Ravens and 20% better against the Bears and 30. Like, that's not going to happen. But let's say that you have 6 or 7 throws in that game that are not accurate, that are costly, that are costing you yards. And then the next week it's instead of 7 or 8, it's 4 or 5, right? Just cutting it down because now you're getting a real chance to go out there and do it in real time at full speed. I think, all things considered, the amount of time that he missed to come back and play the way that he did, to play confidently, to throw the ball confidently, to run the ball confidently into the end zone the way that he did, to scramble and escape. Sometimes there was a little too much confidence from JJ McCarthy and himself, and he took some hits because of it. But you'd rather have that and try to rein it in than you would have him look timid or scared or something like that. So, overall, like, the confidence was there. The belief in himself was there. Now it's just like mastering and smoothing out the technical stuff. But I thought that was a great breakdown from KOC there. And McCarthy also talked about improving his accuracy as he goes along as well.
When you talk about accuracy outside the pocket and when you're on the move, how do you drill that down so that you can make those throws on the run and be precise with them?
For me, it just goes back to how many times am I going to, in a comfortable setting, put myself in uncomfortable positions, body positions to make those throws. And being on the run, it's not uncomfortable, but it's different. And, obviously coming off of 6 weeks of not being able to run, that's going to be an area of my game that I need to catch up on and improve on. And we did a lot today to do that.
Kevin's talked a lot about just the lower half and the progression from that standpoint. Where do you feel like you're at just in that regard with your mechanics and in and out of the pocket, really?
I feel like I'm growing. That's the number one metric that I really focus on, is just growth. Was I better today than I was yesterday? And, there's a lot of room to go, a lot more growth to happen.
So there you go, JJ McCarthy, always talking about growth. And I think that it's one of the things about him that has stood out since day one, that when he got to the Vikings, he was not accurate and he didn't have down any of the technical stuff. And I'm talking way back after he was first drafted. And, you're watching it out there going, is this going to be okay? And then it got better, and then it got better, and then I got better. So I expect the same thing to happen here as the more that he plays. And the same thing happened in this training camp, where at the beginning of training camp, you thought, that's not quite, this day is good and that day is bad. And then by the end of camp, he was having day after day after day where he looked like an NFL starting quarterback who you could win games with. So to come back, this is a good starting point where you get a huge win on the road at Ford Field. You get a performance good enough to win a game like that is your baseline starting point. Well, now he can grow from there. And he talked a little bit about, so it's very noticeable with McCarthy in these couple of games, especially the wins, his intensity. That is something that has become quite clear. He's out there making faces, and, when he scores the touchdown, he's flexing. And after the game, he's got kind of a look in his eye that's a little bit crazy eyes. And Kevin O'Connell joked about kind of getting out of the way, like he doesn't want a flying arm or something, with McCarthy, because he's so pumped up. But he talked about last year having a lot of that angst sort of build up as he was waiting desperately to get back out on the field and play football.
The game day intensity, how far back can you trace that in your career in sports or life?
To be honest with you, it really kind of started to show up this year. And it came about last year during IR, just never had a full season where, you know, you want to be out there so freaking bad, but you can. It was just this built up anger that was kind of ready to just explode. And I chose to harness it instead of letting it go into, you know, a self-destructive kind of way. And it's unique, and I kind of love feeding that wolf because my entire life, you know, at Michigan, it was a smiley face on my hand and smile and you have fun, you're going to play better and all that, which is true. But I also think there's a lot of power that comes from, you know, that built up anger that you can transmute into your performance.
So there's JJ McCarthy feeding the wolf. There you go. Well, look, like I said, there was a saying, and I know it transfers over to football, but I think it's really big in hockey. So all you hockey fans have heard it, that it's easier to say whoa than go, which means, look, you can tell a guy who is a little bit overly amped up to calm down a bit, and they can calm themselves as they go along and get more experience. But if somebody doesn't have that dog in them and doesn't have that natural energy and intensity and all, it's very hard to say, come on, be intense. And look, I think being a psycho football guy is kind of required for all of this. It's interesting for somebody because I got used to covering Kirk Cousins, who is almost the same age as me. So he talked like he was kind of the dad or the uncle of the locker room, where there was 24-year-old players and 26-year-old players, and Kirk was in his 30s, and, you know, the whole, they put chains on him, all that stuff. And he would reference Fred McGriff and, you know, talk about Creed and things from really, honestly, when I was a teenager, because we were teenagers around the same time. And I was like, oh yeah, okay. So he kind of talked like that. And Sam Darnold was, you know, a few years younger, but still like a grown up who had been around the block in the NFL and was kind of more guarded, had been in the New York market, was a little more, it took about half the season, maybe a little longer for him to be a little more open when it came to those podium sessions and the conversations we had with him. And JJ McCarthy is just full Gen Z, 22 years old, like every bit of that, just kind of a ball of energy as a younger guy. And it's interesting because I think that a lot of younger athletes, they sort of process things differently. They sort of talk differently. They have had a lot more, I think, people who are directing them from a very early age. And so I think that he's taken a lot of these things that he's seen. And I don't mean directing as just in coaching. I mean as in even just watching YouTube or, you know, seeing quotes from athletes or whatever. I mean, if you, I don't know, like were my age that you had to get like Basketball Digest or something to read quotes from athletes. And now you can see every single JJ McCarthy press conference, you know, just right at your fingertips. So there's a lot of kind of motivational type of stuff that I think younger athletes and, you know, things that they are kind of latching onto and connecting with that don't sound the same way as Kirk Cousins did. And I'm having to get used to that as well. But I thought that his explanation there was really good, that, you know, last year, to say put a chip on his shoulder seems like pretty cliche, but maybe change his viewpoint of there was a lot of angst from him last year about not playing. It was really, really hard. He had never played before. And I've said this, and, I don't know that it can never really be overstated that when guys just disappear for an injury, they're still a human. They're going through something that's really hard, not only from a physical perspective to get back to 100%, but also from a mental and emotional perspective. And if you are a, 28-year-old NFL player who's been in the league for X number of years and you have a meniscus tear and you're out, that's still really hard. But if you are a kid who came in and was sort of hey, you're going to be the franchise quarterback, and that's what you're being anointed at as your coach, and then you got to be away from football for a long time, I think it clearly changed him in some ways, but also maybe you don't take it for granted every time he walks out there to play against the Detroit Lions. So I think, that sort of intensity, that sort of vibe, if you will, from your quarterback, you would much rather have that than, somebody out there who's comatose. So that's why, I don't know who I made this crack to, but you got to be a certain age to really get this one too. but the 1993 season where Jim McMahon played for the Vikings, Jim McMahon was kind of wild, kind of crazy in a lot of good ways and maybe some not great ways. And he led the 85 Bears to the Super Bowl. He ends up getting that team to the playoffs by, it wasn't masterful quarterback play, but he found a way. Like, he brought the intensity, he brought the leadership, he brought the toughness, brought some mobility, made some plays. And maybe there's a little bit more of a Case Keenum recent example where Keenum was a vibe, right? Keenum brought a playmaking element, was kind of wild at times and maybe frustrating to his head coach at times, but everybody bought in. Only Case Keenum didn't have physical gifts that are anywhere near what JJ McCarthy's are. So if you take some of that element of toughness or intensity or competitiveness or leadership or whatever you call it, and you make it a lot younger, larger and faster and stronger, then you have what we're seeing from JJ McCarthy. But just, good insight into kind of his thought process there. And it must just be, pretty wild for somebody at his age to be taking on an organization with so many great players and the amount of self-belief that you have to do that. I think for someone like him, you're looking for every single thing that you can use to take with you out onto that field, because man, is it scary out there. It's scary out there. It's scary to watch training camp. When you see the size, the speed, the violence of the NFL, it takes a lot of guts. So you got to use every single thing to get out there, because I think you've seen in the past when a quarterback was scared looking, and it's ugly. It gets very ugly. So you could see how he draws on all of those things to do what he does. And now, hey, you had a great game against Detroit. On to the next one. So there's the main takeaways from that. One more thing before I get to your questions and comments. Andrew Van Ginkel, it was interesting. Kevin O'Connell said that he showed the team a play from Andrew Van Ginkel, who I think shifted the defense's outlook. One player, I don't know, 180 degrees. Truly, one player shifted this defense's outlook by that much. And the play that they highlighted in the meeting was where Van Ginkel got shoved down from behind by Khalif Raymond, who was going in motion and then just hit Van Ginkel. Honestly, when you see the tape, it looks like right in the back. And he goes down and yet still sees that it's a screen pass, spins around and makes the tackle. An amazing play. But when we asked him about it, I saw that his wife had retweeted a breakdown of it. And so I kind of jokingly said, oh, hey, I saw your wife retweeted that and what happened on that play. And he was very unhappy about it, actually, because of the hit from Khalif Raymond and coming and putting his hands into, I guess you could argue maybe his shoulder or side, but it looked more like even his back, and how that the pass rushers are just not protected at all from that, where you could just come in and blindside them. So I think that's something that the NFL does have to look at if teams are going to do that and just destroy a pass rusher while he can't protect himself at all. Using receivers to send outside linebackers flying. Now, he asked the referee and they said that it wasn't a crack block, an illegal crack block. But to me, it's the same exact concept where somebody has no chance of seeing or knowing that someone's going to come completely blindside and hammer them, especially for a guy that had a neck injury. That really not something that they were happy about. Eric Wilson called it BS. He seemed to be pretty frustrated about it. So that might be something that the Vikings do submit to the NFL to take a look at, and they should not allow that. I agree that it's either a dirty play, very, very borderline dirty play, or just should be litigated. If you're trying to protect players and player safety, you shouldn't be able to send a wide receiver in motion, sneak up behind the pass rusher and just drill him out of nowhere, because that doesn't seem quite what we're going for here in terms of health and safety. But that was interesting. The Van Ginkel, his communication ability, his football smarts, his toughness, his instincts, his pass rush ability, coverage ability. You just saw all of it against Detroit. So they need him healthy, and he did come out of the game healthy despite the hit from Khalif Raymond. So there is most of the things. Yeah, I know, Nick. The Lions playing dirty water is wet. Yeah, I know. I mean, it has become a thing for sure, where it absolutely seems like they play a certain style of football that is really on the edge, and apparently did not break the rules there, but came really, really close to it. And a lot of the Vikings players were really unhappy with what happened there. Let me get you the FanDuel question of the day, and then we'll answer some questions here. JJ McCarthy's over-under on FanDuel is 205.5 yards against the Ravens. Give me your projected McCarthy stat line against Baltimore. That's what I'm looking for. His over-under 205.5. Is he going to go over or under? Give me your projected. What do you expect from him for a stat line after now? Hey, we got all 3 starts for for JJ McCarthy. So can we have enough to build on there against Baltimore? How good is their defense? Clearly improving with some of the health, but are you sold on their defense yet? Interested in your answers there. All right, let's start out with from CB coming a pie chart request here. How much of Sunday's success do you think was, number 1, the healthy team on offense and defense, 2, JJ McCarthy, 3, coaching, and 4, explosive plays? The explosive plays are kind of a result of the other 3, but I think number 1 is the health. I really do think that number 1 is the health, because as a coach, you can only work with the players that are out there. You cannot do a whole lot when you have 2 backup tackles, a backup center. If you have, like they did early in the season, your number 2 wide receiver who's a star suspended, you can have success there. You don't have to automatically lose the game, but it ain't the same when you're talking about taking away Pro Bowl caliber talent and a backup quarterback as well. So, I think that being healthy also applies to having JJ McCarthy in there, but especially on the defensive side. So if we just said, hey, it's defense being healthy, Brian Flores can do a lot, but he can't turn Dallas Turner into Andrew Van Ginkel at the snap of a finger. That's 8 years in the NFL or whatever Van Ginkel, however long he's been in the NFL, worth of experience, worth of communication, worth of seeing offenses, defenses, every different type of look. That was a massive deal to have him. And Blake Cashman back to 100%, Harrison Smith back to 100%. These players, that's the whole foundation of what Brian Flores built this thing on, is those guys roaming around along with Byron Murphy, communicating with each other, changing the defense at every offensive look. So not having those guys made it so much harder to do. So I'm going to go number 1 on that list. I would go probably 40% is just having health there. Now, JJ McCarthy would get another 30% because we saw with Carson Wentz, the injured version of Carson Wentz was not going to be able to win really at all. That banged up. Oh, well, it's only his left shoulder, right? But, if it's making you scream in pain every time you get touched, I don't think that's going to give you an opportunity to play at your absolute best. So having a dynamic quarterback out there, having a quarterback that can run for a touchdown, that can zip passes into tight coverage and things like that, this is a very skilled player, very raw at this point, but very talented player. And he showed a lot of it against Detroit and gave them some nightmares on certain plays. That was a big part. I would go 30% having him back out there with the way the offense was able to operate, to score in the red zone. Like, that's a lot of JJ McCarthy, because they really couldn't when they had Carson Wentz out there. And in terms of coaching, so I'm already at 70%. Coaching goes into every part of this, but I don't think the coaches can do as much without those players out there. So I'm always going to lean players first. So I'll go with 20% the coaching, and then 10% explosive plays, because they those do change a game. A field goal block, a strip fumble recovery by Harrison Smith, the fumble caused by Blake Cashman. Like, those are huge plays, and some big throws by JJ McCarthy. Like, those are big. But I think that in terms of them being kind of back, like, it's just having the right guys on the field is number 1, and then they're going to make the plays. The coaching was excellent in this game. It was overall a very well called game by Kevin O'Connell, and Brian Flores did an A-plus job against the Lions there, coaching up the defense. And I did notice that Kevin O'Connell snuck in there today that, that goal line play where JJ McCarthy goes out of bounds and stops the clock, that he maybe needed to say into the headset, hey, it's okay to take a sack. It's not okay to run out of bounds. So maybe some of that could be that, McCarthy inexperience in game situations, stuff like that. A little situational football there, but maybe saw your tweets. I don't know about the game management. I mean, look, you're calling a pass play there, so you have to know that you got to stay in bounds. JJ McCarthy does. Let's see. I shot you 99. If Samuel Jr. leaves without a contract being signed, it's a done deal. He won't be signing here, or will he be just doing due diligence? So I've seen it both ways. Because, I mean, Stephon Gilmore came to visit in the middle of the summer, and then we didn't hear from Stephon Gilmore for a little while. And then all of a sudden, Stephon Gilmore is signing with the Vikings. So I don't know. I think if you're him, you probably go on your full tour, don't you? At this point, there's no real hurry for Asante Samuel Jr. It's not like free agency where you're like, I better find a seat today. And some guys just sign without even visiting. And, you're like, I just better get in there, right? It's not like that for him. He's got teams that are going to put their offers on the table, and he's going to do the medicals, and everybody's going to discuss it. And then he can say, all right, let me sit down like House Hunters, one of my favorite shows. And he can look at each one and he could say, which house do I want? Do I want the open concept? Do I want the one with the backyard? Do I want the one that's got a lot of natural light and beams? Like anybody who watches the show knows that that's like 90% of the commentary. Location is usually important. That might be important to Asante Samuel. I don't know. It might just be guaranteed dollars at the end of the day, or there might be more to it. His fit in the defense, how he jived with the coaches that he met with, or the front office that he met with. I don't know. But if you're him, I don't think if he leaves the building, it's over. I think you got to sit down and take a really diligent look at where you think you're going to be, and who you're going to trust in terms of like the handling of your medical needs for him, because I'm sure that there's something that goes along with spinal fusion, right? Is that what it was? I mean, there's got to be. I don't think you just like, okay, he's good to go. Like, I'm sure that there's more things that go along with that. So, I'm sure that his health is going to be an issue as well, that he wants to talk over with the team and what their plan is for keeping him healthy. Then dollars, then location, then team success. Like, those would be the things I'd be looking at. But I want every team's thoughts first. So BM says he's working out with like 6 teams. Not sure the Vikings are the most appealing. It really depends. I mean, because it's not going to be just on, hey, I don't think anyway. I don't know Asante Samuel Jr., but normally it would not be just, is this team in position to win the Super Bowl right now? Because that can change so fast. I mean, if you go to San Francisco, they're 6-2, but they're really banged up. Like, they could fall off the face of the earth in the second half of the season. Green Bay, maybe you don't want to live in Green Bay. As if anybody's been there, you could maybe see why. No offense to the people of Wisconsin, but, like pro athletes might not always want to go live in the woods. And you could say that from Minnesota as well. If you're if you're an LA guy, or you're an Atlanta guy, or we're at Texas or North Carolina or Florida, I don't know where he's from, but South or Southwest, maybe you're thinking, I don't know about that weather up there. And if it's a 50-50 shot, you might go to North Carolina. I don't know. So, I don't know him at all, but I would be thinking, if I were in his shoes, where do I feel the most comfortable? What building, what coaches, what teammates, like, do I know people there? And then it comes down to, what are the offers? And if the offers are very big in difference, well, then you might sacrifice going to live in the woods of Lambeau. If you're going to get a lot more dollars than maybe living in North Carolina or San Francisco or something, maybe cost of living, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of different things that could go into it from his standpoint, but I don't think that the Vikings are unattractive in this way. They're a 500 team that just got their quarterback back, that has a really good reputation with guys from the outside coming in here. We saw all the signings that they had in the offseason. So their reputation within agents, within other players is very, very good. And that's why they usually get players like this. But what are their realistic chances? That I don't know. I'd have to be in the room with him. But I mean, I guess if he's meeting with 6 teams, then it's 1-6. Maybe a little bit weighed higher than 1-6 because, obviously this team is good at making their sales pitch. Zoomer KO points out no Brian O'Neill on the injury report. Absolutely huge. Yep, absolutely huge. Saw him out there today. Matt Verick says, good to see you there in the live. Do you think that Miles Price has earned a larger role on the team moving forward? Also, does he have a record for most yards called back to penalty? I don't know if he has a record, but man, it feels like it. He's got to be, whatever the record is, he's got to be close to most called back by penalty. He's interesting. I don't know that you want to take off the field too many times other wide receivers. So, just for example, they've run a couple of reverses and they've really worked. Jalen Naylor is very fast and Jordan Addison is very shifty and really great with the ball in his hands. People may forget that Jordan Addison was a special punt returner himself at Pitt. He was just fantastic. So he's great with the ball in his hands as well. So who are you taking off the field to put Miles Price on the field? But also at some point it becomes a little bit of, and I know this is a big difference because one guy was a first round pick and the other guy is an undrafted guy, but it does become a little bit Cordero Patterson-y where you're going, this guy is so good at breaking tackles and seeing the field and making plays that maybe you do have to put him out there at some point. And, when we look into the future a little bit, if Jalen Naylor is going to hit free agency, Miles Price, Ty Felton, these are 2 guys that are good with the football in their hands that may shift what that number 3 wide receiver position is for the Vikings. Right now, it's kind of a downfield route runner, but maybe it shifts more into a playmaker and maybe they can, create 2 or 3 plays per game for him at some point because he really is exceptional. But as of right now, really good to have as a returner if they could just stop holding. Let's see. Kib Beast says Thielen has been totally MIA. Yeah, look, I mean, I think that this was kind of bound to happen when Jalen Naylor came back, that Adam Thielen's snap count was going to go down. But then also the other part of it too is that even with Nick Vannett out there, he is a journeyman blocking tight end, listed at like 266, big dude. They're using a lot of the bigger personnel because other teams are going to blitz JJ McCarthy and they want to be able to run the football. It is a bit in vogue right now to be using bigger personnel, but that's because everyone's realizing it's very successful. So they're using a lot of 2 tight ends. They're going to do it when Josh Oliver comes back. And then when you're going 3 wide receivers, you're putting Jalen Naylor out there. So the opportunity there is just limited. And, Adam Thielen, I think, was brought in a large part to play a big role in the first couple games. And sometimes the plan that you have doesn't end up playing out the way that you would have thought, because I thought over the first 3 games, I remember we had this discussion when they traded for him, like what's a reasonable projection for Adam Thielen? And I think I was in the range of like 20, 25 catches somewhere. I don't think anybody was saying, hey, he's going to catch 60 balls for the Vikings. There's just not enough football to go around to all these playmakers. And the expectation was, okay, McCarthy will come in these first 3 games without Jordan Addison. He'll have an extra weapon to throw to Adam Thielen, get a handful of catches, maybe rack up 10 receptions or something. And then the rest of the year, he's going to pop in and out. He's going to rotate and make a few plays, right? That was the expectation. And those first 3 games just did not go the way we thought. Against Chicago, there's a drop-ish in there to him. He catches the 2-point conversion. That was good. But, there wasn't a lot of throws in that game for JJ McCarthy. Some of the biggest plays were with his legs in that game, like the touchdown run. And they ran the ball well with Jordan Mason late in the game. They didn't have a ton of completions early. Then the Atlanta game is just a disaster all across the board. So there's not a lot of opportunity there. Third game, You have Carson Wentz take over. You're so far ahead because of defensive touchdowns. You're just basically running the football and throwing a handful of underneath passes from Carson Wentz. And then Jordan Addison comes back, and it's, hey, reminder, Jordan Addison's amazing. A great, great football player. And there just hasn't been a ton of opportunity. They must rank, I can look this up, they must rank toward the bottom of the league in total pass attempts. They have to be really low. Let me see if I can find this. Pro Football Reference is not being my friend right now. Where's team stats? Let's see if I can find the team stat just for pure pass attempts. I'm curious about, because they can't have that many so far this year. So actually the Ravens have the fewest. Yeah, they're in the bottom. They have 244 pass attempts. The Ravens have the fewest with 208. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So only 7 teams have fewer pass attempts. And when that happens, you're not going to have guys with Jamar Chase numbers. But you know, the trade, look, the trade doesn't look good for them at the moment because it didn't play out when it was supposed to, which was the beginning of the season. Is that completely over yet? No. I mean, you're always one. Look, if Jalen Naylor gets banged up and you've got to play Thielen more, you're always one play away from that mattering a lot more, or him, you know, rotating in a little bit more as we go on. If McCarthy starts to get hot throwing the football and you're needing to rotate in receivers, like, we can't declare the whole thing 8 games through the season when there's 9 games to go. But it just, the main part where he was supposed to be used kind of came and went. So BM says, for as violent of a runner as Mason is, he's tentative and timid in pass blocking. I think that it's a real technical thing. You know who used to be really good at it? Was Amir Abdullah. Small guy, but he would get low and he would get his hands on guys and he wouldn't lunge. I think lunging is a big issue. Like, you have to really sturdy yourself to accept that contact and then get low into that linebacker's pads. And it is not a good time. And it's happening lightning fast, identifying stuff. Like, being a good pass protecting running back, this is why I always really, really respected Latavius Murray. It's hard to do, man. It is so hard to do. So he either has to improve on that, or just they're probably going to need CJ Ham out there, who is just a phenomenal, phenomenal pass protector. Mama says, when do you think that McCarthy will throw for his first 300-yard game? You know, there just isn't as many 300-yard games as there were a couple of years ago, where it felt like everybody was doing it. 2020, 2021, where you got guys throwing for 5,000 plus yards. If I had to pick one in particular, I think the obvious choice is against the Dallas Cowboys, because, I don't know, me throwing to you feels like we could get, 250 against the Cowboys. They just can't cover anybody. Quinnen Williams is a great player for them, but that doesn't help their coverage a bit. So I think that would be my pick, because that has shootout written all over it. They've got the offense and the receivers to be able to give the Vikings a pretty darn difficult time. But they can't cover anyone. So I would go with that one. That feels like the most likely shootout, but it'll probably be, like, the Bears could be one of those too. The Bears can't stop anybody, and the Bears have an offense that's running the football extremely well. Caleb Williams is putting up some points, so maybe it'll be next week at home. Let's see. Chase Daniel posted his game review. Still learn more from JT, but worth a watch. Yeah, the QB school one was excellent. It is very detailed. JT gets really into the woods with that. But, these former quarterbacks putting out reviews is great. It helps me a ton because, when it comes to watching film, I've watched a lot of it. I've done a film review for every single game since I got here in 2016. And yet still, when I watch the film back, I don't see everything. And I don't know every assignment, which is always, comes up. I don't know always what was supposed to happen. And I don't try to guess. What I'll usually do is pick out plays where I have a pretty good sense of, they tell the story that I heard from the locker room. They tell the story of the data. So just, for example, with the throw that was referenced today by Kevin O'Connell, where McCarthy rips it over the middle and he catches, Jefferson catches it, kind of goes down. Well, that one is a pretty clear cut. Hey, what happened on that play? And the touch and accuracy was not really there. That was one where it's like they've talked about this a lot. He's talked about it a lot. And here's an example of it. So I'm taking the reporting from out there, the things that I've heard from them, and then applying it to, okay, here's where I see it on tape. And that's how I try to do it. JT and Chase Daniel, they could break it down at a much different level of, yeah, here's what the quarterback is seeing. Here's what the defense is doing. I mean, I can see different coverages. All right, it's man, it looks like zone, it's cover 2, that kind of thing. But teams throw so many wrinkles in there. Sometimes you're like, I don't really know. I'm not really sure what the defense was seeing here. And those guys are so much better. They also break down technical stuff. Like I'm not a quarterback coach. So I like to watch those and then bring them into my own thought process. So it's a great suggestion for anybody who wants to learn more about quarterback play. Like a dog in the street. There you go. It's already catching on, I guess. Do you think the touch passes are there? Seems KOC thinks there's a long way to go. Oh, yeah, there's a long way to go. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a lot of these quarterbacks, like even you see with Michael Penix. Michael Penix is a good example. Bo Nix is a good example. These two guys came out the same time as McCarthy. They've got a lot more experience than McCarthy. And yet still, you will see Michael Penix throw a ball where you go, the heck happened there, man? Or you'll see Bo Nix for sure have accuracy issues at times where there's somebody open and he just flat out misses them. And you're like, okay, now those guys might be closer to their ceilings, but they're still developing quarterbacks. How about Sam Darnold I went back and watched all the Carolina Panthers games from Sam Darnold, and I saw a lot of times where Darnold was doing stuff that he didn't do in Minnesota, where he was making mistakes that he didn't make in Minnesota or missing throws. Like we talk about his arm talent and accuracy. He was inaccurate at times in Carolina and in New York. In fact, sometimes terribly inaccurate. And what would be the defining feature of him in Minnesota and Seattle is how accurate he's been. So you think about how long of a road it is to get to that point. Now you could still win during that time. And McCarthy showed that you can win with the high end plays. You can win with the feet. You can win with playing great defense, running the football, controlling the ball. But it takes a really long time unless you are insanely natural as a thrower. How many guys are like that? Like how many guys came out as young quarterbacks? I think Stroud was like this. And now Stroud, unfortunately, has a concussion and seemed to be broken by his offense and broken by his offensive line, and now just doesn't play with the same confidence that he did. But Stroud was probably the last guy where you went, ooh, yeah, that guy is a very natural thrower and is super accurate right out of the box. But most guys have to learn and improve. So, yeah, I think he does have a long way to go. But I also think there's a corner to be turned where you start playing 4, 5, 6 games and you get into a rhythm. And I've seen this happen with Kirk too over the years. And that was a veteran quarterback and it happened last year with Darnold. Darnold's a better example. It's more recent. So with Darnold last year, he had a terrible, terrible game against Jacksonville. And he came back, and then against Indianapolis and Tennessee, I think it was Indianapolis first, then Tennessee. And those defenses were fine. They weren't trash defenses. He got into a rhythm and hit a couple of throws where you could see it start to click for him. And then it just took off for Darnold, where it was a little spotty early in the year, and then it clicked in. So I think that there's that for McCarthy, a version of that. Now, he's not going to be Sam Darnold. It's going to take longer. But what you'd be looking for is get to a point where you're going into next year, where you get that full offseason, not a recovering offseason, where you're starting to throw in January, but you actually never have to stop. And you just keep getting better and better and better. By the time you arrive as a old, gray-haired 23-year-old, put him in the nursing home. By next year, you're starting to really see that feel improve. But for this year, it's probably going to be a week-to-week grind where, yep, that throw went flying on him, and then it's back to the next one. But the fact that he doesn't get down on himself and he just goes to the next play, I think is really big for that. Jacob, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Like a dog in the street. You guys are really into that. Mama says our quarterback is a psycho. You have to be. You think Tom Brady's normal? Tom Brady just cloned his dog. Did you guys see that? That's crazy. I mean, I guess he's like an investor in some company that clones dogs. Bro, just adopt a different dog. He's a nutcase. Like, right? But Tom Brady's a complete psycho, total lunatic. But, in the way that helps you be amazing at sports. Society's lunacy and sports lunacy sometimes don't always cross paths. I mean, think about how motivated, how crazy does Tom Brady have to be? And I mean this, when I'm talking about psychos, I mean, this is why we love sports, because none of us are this crazy. Like, I might be a little crazy. I'm competitive. You might be competitive. We don't even register on the scale of guys like this. Tom Brady, it sounds like, I don't want to overstep here because I respect this man so much, but it sounded like at the end of his career that he was given an ultimatum by his wife. Like, if you go play football again, we are toast. And he was like, I got a football. I got to give it another shot. I mean, that's how crazy the guy is, right? So, like, I think that there's a lot of shades of that with JJ McCarthy, where you dedicate your life to being, he said today, this is how loony some of these guys are. He said today, like, well, yeah, he didn't say I want to be a fiance and a father first and a quarterback second. He was like, 1A, 1B. It's like, okay. Hey, that's the dedication. Think about this. Kirk said this once, and he's exactly right. And Kirk is crazy. They're all crazy. Kirk said that it's a 24/7, 365 being a quarterback. There's no turning it off. There's no shutting it down and just saying, you know what, today I'm not QB1. It's every single day. It becomes every part of your life. And when you see the great basketball players, the Jordans, the Kobes, the KGs through the years, it's the same kind of deal. Like, they all kind of live on that, teetering that line. Somebody compared him to Phillip Rivers. When Phillip Rivers was young, he was a nutcase too. So there's a lot of that. Yeah. I like to see it. I like to see it. It's energy. It's something that's very hard to defeat. If you have a guy that's going to keep fighting because he's kind of nuts and he's never going to let up, and he's never going to, give in when he's had some bad throws or get down on himself when he's out there because he's just super driven, you can win sometimes when you don't have a chance, when you're 9.5 point underdogs, or, when things have gone poorly, or you've been injured for 5 weeks and you got to get back out there for the first time and you just immediately run to the sideline and get decked and get back up. Like, it takes a lot of guts. It's not easy, but I like all that stuff from JJ McCarthy. Speaking of which, FanDuel question of the day, McCarthy's over under 205.5 yards against the Ravens. Want your projected stat line for JJ McCarthy. Thank you for to like a dog in the street for hitting me with the super chat. Really appreciate that. Thank you very much. BM says Kirk had that dog in him too. It was a basset hound that didn't like going for walks past dusk. Oh, that's funny. Well, look, where Kirk Cousins was crazy is his dedication. When he first came out, I did a story with Kirk one time, and he was great with stuff like this, where I talked to him about his first ever start. And here's the crazy thing about Kirk. He remembered the plays. He wasn't preparing for our interview. He remembered the plays. He was like, oh yeah, on this one, I had an interception, but I had to make a tackle, and we ran like 60% bootlegs. And I was like, how do you know the data from this game? It was wild. Like, his mind worked in a different way. And his dedication to when you watch his first start ever, you're like, okay, that guy's a backup quarterback. You never would have said this guy will someday get the most guaranteed money. The amount that he worked to get to that point, to understand, he got made fun of for some of the stuff, but he had an office in Washington and he was there, night and day, learning the offense and, getting to the point with his throwing technique where he could be an above average starter in the NFL. He made more out of less than 99.9% of quarterbacks ever do. So he was nuts in his own way. It was just a little different. I think he was never really truly, like, his personality is just very, very different than McCarthy. And you could tell that. And I think he didn't have the same type of personality that we kind of attribute to starting quarterbacks who are like the leader guy. And sometimes that didn't jive so well. And other times it did. Like with O'Connell, it did. And some of the Zimmer players, it didn't. So that was a little different. Calling a Gen Z or Gen Z is a millennial thing to say. Look, I don't know anything. When it comes to anything outside of talking about sports and Tom Brady's clone dog, what do I know? I don't know how you're supposed to refer to Gen Z people. The youths these days. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know anything about them. I don't know what they're doing out there on their TikToks. Come on. I'm still watching football games from 1997, like I did the other day on the plane to Detroit. So I'm not I'm not locked in on how the young people are talking about stuff. Let's see. Tommy says, am I the only one Vikings fan thinking that Blake Brandel is quite possibly the same level of center as Garrett Bradbury? So he's not. He is not on that level. And the reason that he's not on that level is the run blocking. As far as a pass protector, yes, I would say it's possible that he's actually better. He is certainly bigger. And if he gets some patience, which I think he showed against Detroit, and Wes Phillips broke this down for us, that he could be impatient at times, where as a guard, you want to just fire off the ball. Whereas a center, you need to kind of drift. And like, where's stuff coming from? You kind of have to have bird eyes or whatever, where you can see peripherally and deal with stuff and help, right? As a center, where you're not just, oh, I see it's over there, I'm going to go over there. I need to be a little more patient. So he's learning that. I think he's okay in pass protection unless he's facing Jalen Carter. In all games not Jalen Carter related, he's been fine. But the run blocking, 6'7" center is just really hard to do some stuff run blocking wise. Usually these guys are like 6'2", 6'3" maybe. Garrett Bradbury, I mean, I'm 6'1.5", and I think I was kind of looking Garrett Bradbury in the eyes, and he was really, really good in certain run schemes. Now, was he the best at just getting under someone's pads and driving them back? No. But if he had to get a reach block and he had to get moving, 2019 would have been his first year. He was really good at their run scheme that year. So, he's a much better run blocker. And Bradbury's been good for New England. Let me look where he's been at New England. And it might be Drake May getting rid of the ball. It might be schematics. Like, I'm not, sure. I haven't watched a ton of their tape. Where does he rank? He also had this thing where from year to year, he would tend to have a good start. So he's 20th in the league by PFF. And when it comes to pass blocking, 10th. He would have this issue sometimes where he'd be 10th in the league by PFF, and we'd be like, oh, Bradbury's playing well. And then he would give up 5 pressures and just have a bad matchup. And that's what a lot of it came down to. I always wanted to give Bradbury more credit. And I think that certain systems that ask the quarterback to hold on to the ball for 3 seconds are not really built for Garrett Bradbury. So this year, though, he's only allowed 8 pressures. He's having at this moment. So here's the thing. At this moment, he's got his second highest PFF pass blocking grade. His last 2 games, though, 42 and 39 grades against Cleveland and Atlanta, probably matchup based, probably will end up similar to where he was. So Brandel's like in that ballpark, though, and maybe a little bit more consistent because he's bigger. But if he faces Jalen Carter, he's going to lose. And that's just, most people do, and that's how it's going to be. But at least I think what he proved last week is that he can stabilize the offensive line and not be such a weak link that you could just attack, and then it's game over. And also, it helps that McCarthy can scramble. It's just a big deal that he can run away. And when you watch some of these games, whether it's Lamar or Mahomes or Allen, that scrambling element is just so big. You saw it with Justin Herbert and how he could get out and get moving. It's enormous because nobody has time to throw anymore. There's so many blitzes, so many different schemes that teams are using. Nobody has time. In terms of FanDuel question of the day, Justin has 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, maybe an interception. I think that's a very fair stat line. And if you can run the ball against Baltimore, throw for 215 yards, get a couple of touchdowns, especially early in the game, you're going to give yourself a chance to win. If you get in a shootout with Lamar Jackson, it's going to be pretty tough. Boogie says, did Eric Wilson take some snaps away from Dallas Turner? I've seen Wilson lined up at outside linebacker. Absolutely did. Yeah, absolutely did. And this is where Eric Wilson is, I think, such a unique player. He came up, I believe, early in his career as a safety, maybe. And because he's not the biggest guy, he is the most jacked guy. I think if we were doing jacked guy Hall of Famers, Daniil Hunter is the number one on the podium, can't be knocked off. Eric Wilson's pretty close. He's very, very strong. And you saw that against Jahmyr Gibbs. But I think they also said, I mean, this guy's powerful and strong and he's got burst to him, put him on the outside. If he's forced to guard a tight end, he can do that. If he rushes off the edge, he could do that. If they stunt with him and he comes inside, if he drops back in coverage, he's a very unique player. But I think the answer is yes, that those snaps were originally designed for Dallas Turner, and Turner still ended up taking 14, I think, but they end up putting Ivan Pacemore in a middle linebacker type of role. I think that you're just talking about another weapon here to use. And if we just sort of stay in the here and now and don't have to get into the whole front office draft capital thing that we can discuss another day, I think Wilson's experience just plays so well with this defense. And we are getting to a point where we have to acknowledge that it feels like Flores just needs that. He needs guys out there who really understand football, to the deepest level. And that's Eric Wilson. Eric Wilson is one of the most high IQ players you're going to run across. Has seen a lot of stuff, has been with this team 2 separate times, impressed multiple coaching staffs. He's a good fit to be dynamic. I think that Turner is still trying to learn that. I shot you 99. Do you think the Panthers and Vikings are in a kind of a similar situation with Bryce Young? For some reason, they feel like almost the same team this season. Well, they feel like it in part. When their backup quarterback played, they got killed. So that probably was similar with Andy Dalton. I think with Bryce Young, he got set back a year also by just a bad situation where he had to play right away and should not have played right away. Whereas McCarthy couldn't play right away, but both felt like rookies in year 2. There were setbacks. I mean, this is a similarity. Last year, Bryce Young got benched. He was bad. And, we didn't see enough of JJ McCarthy for him to be benched, but it was a really ugly start to the season for Bryce. He looked like he couldn't play at all. And then they figured some things out with him. He figured some things out and they started to gel. They started to get close into games. And then the corner that I'm talking about got turned by Bryce Young, and he's come in this year and he's played well. He is not a megastar quarterback, but when you're talking about how you can win, I think it is similar to what you're talking about with JJ McCarthy, where you just need your quarterback to do certain things for you. You don't need him to do everything for you. I'm curious. Yeah, Bryce Young, not grading super high, 5.7 yards per attempt. Definitely not showing. This would be the difference between him and McCarthy, is that he's showing game manager type, and he's had some comebacks and he's had some, exciting wins for the Panthers, but he's showing game manager type level quarterback play where, hey, look at Jacoby Brissett. That's the kind of level you're talking about. And do you find another level with a player like him? The answer is usually no, because the raw talent is not there. He can go out there and manage an offense and he can make some nice throws. He's got decent accuracy, but his size and his arm strength are issues. Whereas with JJ McCarthy, those things are strengths for him. And I remember somebody, who was it, that said, oh, McCarthy is kind of slight. I was like, have you seen him? It was an executive said that to Mike Sando. Like, when was the last time you saw the guy? He was slight when he was recovering from his knee issue and lost weight. He is not slight now. I mean, and his arm talent, clearly the velocity on the ball, it's actually a problem. It's literally his biggest problem is he keeps throwing the ball too hard. I mean, you see the whiz on that thing and you're like, yeah, the arm talent has never been an issue for him. But for Bryce Young, the bones aren't there of how big, how hard do you throw a football? I know that O'Connell said that arm strength wasn't at the number one top of his list for arm talent and for things he looks for. But at some point, like, you have to have an arm where you can make plays. And, he doesn't have speed to run away from people. Like, he is a guy that you can only go so far with, probably. Whereas McCarthy right now is playing sort of on that same level and sort of similar type of football at this moment. And you can win that way. But what you're looking for is next step, next step, next step. And I don't think that next step is really there for Bryce Young. I think he's going to be a good quarterback, and maybe someday he'll play for the San Francisco 49ers and he'll throw for 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. And, we'll say, wow, man, it was always right there. But for now, they're building everything off of their run game and bigger personnel and defense, and it's working for them. But the Vikings have fallen into, when you talk about the Panthers, this same sort of tier of teams that any week the Panthers destroyed Atlanta, got killed by the Bills, beat the Packers. Like, what is this team? And we felt that way with the Vikings. What you're looking for is now the full roster. The full roster of the Vikings is better than the full roster of a team like Atlanta or a team like the Panthers that you're looking to kind of leave behind ultimately in the playoff race. But Carolina, I think, is really well coached. I think Dave Canales has done an awesome, awesome job with that team. So that's a help as well for them elevating their talent, that they have a good game plan to build off for Bryce Young. But, I think it's one player has a little bit higher ceiling and potential long term. Also, the Vikings have Justin Jefferson, which will help them throw the football as well. Mama says we need Aaron Jones to play. Totally agree. Totally agree. That is JJ McCarthy's best friend there. Brett has 184 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 turnovers, 4 sacks. That might be a little bit tough to win. If you have 2 turnovers and 4 sacks, that's a lot of negative plays and not enough production. But it's not unrealistic considering the type of defense that the Carolina Panthers play. That was an answer to the FanDuel question of the day. And 205.5 is JJ McCarthy's line there. So you'd have him a little bit below. The sacks need to stop, need to come down. You can't always try to be a playmaker. Like, you've got to get those sacks to come down. Ahmed says, Brady made a great point in the broadcast. The Vikings scoring on the first drive was so crucial as it let Flores get into his aggressive game plan. 1,000% agree with that psycho Tom Brady. Totally agree. He might know a thing or two about football, and I would completely agree with that. And I think that it's huge this week as well, where the beginning of the game, it feels so far from the ending, and yet it sets the tone for the ending. It sets the tone for every other part of a football game. You get the ball and immediately tie the Detroit Lions. This is where Miles Price was enormous. You immediately tie them, and it's like, okay, you're not playing from behind. But the other night when I think it was Brian Murphy on this show said that he felt like if they had gone 3 and out, and maybe, they're in field goal range, but let's say they go 3 and out, don't score, or even if they do, and Detroit goes and scores another touchdown, and you're down 14-3, now you're asking JJ McCarthy to bring you back and scrambling, and you're afraid to stick with the run because you're thinking if you go 3 and out, then you're in big trouble. Like, those first 2 drives, those first 20 plays, 15 plays for Kevin O'Connell, JJ McCarthy are enormous. And here's the benefit. I was thinking about this today is, the Vikings have some weird weeks a little bit at some point. They play on Christmas, national TV game against the Dallas Cowboys. But for the most part, they will get normal weeks to prepare their team to run their opening scripts. And it has been a strength of Kevin O'Connell's since he's been here to dial up that opening script that gets them in the end zone or gets them into at very least, into the red zone and puts points on the board. They need that badly against Baltimore. Let's see. Zoomer KO says 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 1 rushing touchdown would be a great day for them. I think they can win there, and I don't think it's an unreasonable expectation. Son of Beaver says, I say we sign Christian Wilkins while we're at it to help the run defense. Could be really scary the back half of the season. So I don't know what the deal is with Christian Wilkins. Something happened there that was beyond okay in the locker room. And I don't even really want to go there with that discussion, but the fact that there doesn't seem to be any conversation about Christian Wilkins makes me think that whoever is making decisions around the league is not really comfortable with that person. So I don't know. I don't want to go into any weird spots with that, but just this is a really good player and a player who got a lot of money from the Raiders. You would think that there would be interest if he was healthy, and I don't know how long he's going to be out, if he was even approaching full health, that a lot of teams would be talking about a player like that, and yet you've heard nothing. Makes me think that there's an off-field type of concern with somebody like him. I like where they're at defensive tackle the last couple weeks. Obviously, the Chargers game just went off the rails, but the way they stopped Barkley, the way they stopped Gibbs, putting Jalen Redmond and using a real 3-4, it's kind of fun to see when you go, wait a minute, that's what I used to use on Madden in 1999, right? The 3-4, where the two overhanging outside linebackers, two inside backers, and three, the defensive linemen, but they're on the inside shoulder of the tackle, or they're playing that kind of 5 technique over the tackles instead of wide of them. It's like that's 3-4 stuff. To push Redmond out a little bit, to push Allen out a little bit, has been an interesting strategy. And then having those linebackers come downhill, using 3 linebackers with Eric Wilson and Pace and Blake Cashman, it's interesting. It's an interesting strategy, and I wonder how it'll eventually be attacked if they're using that type of personnel a lot. But I think that that's kind of their plan at defensive tackle. Maybe I don't think there's a real other answer other than like Blake Cashman and Andrew Van Ginkel being out there just makes such a big difference in terms of stopping the run. Let's see. Marauder says expected Speedy to be traded for some capital. Are we extending him or walk and hope for conditionals? Well, I mean, I think you mean the comp picks is what you mean. Yeah. So with Jalen Naylor, I wouldn't take any piece out. Now, look, if they had gotten killed, if it was 38-3 Lions and you're 3-5, okay, get Felton in there. If you got to use Thielen, use them. Get Miles Price in there. Like, let's see some other guys, right? But when you get a win and your chance to make the playoffs is 30%, and you're looking forward and you're going, well, Jaden Daniels is out. Cowboys stink. Giants stink. You just beat the Lions. Like, you're going to play the Packers. You always play them pretty tough. Like, why not us is probably what you're saying. Why give away a piece that's helpful for you and that JJ McCarthy has chemistry with? That's the other part too. If we're going to say, got to do everything to find out about McCarthy, well, then you can't lop off somebody who he gets along with really well. So I think it wouldn't have made much sense there to have Jalen Naylor traded away for a conditional 6th or something. I mean, what does that get you? You'd much rather just play him and then he'll sign somewhere else. You get a comp pick down the road. That's kind of how I think it would go. KFT, what about Chaz Chambliss at edge? They're just not going to play guys like that unless they have to. I mean, I like their guys that are the backups at outside linebacker, but I like Eric Wilson a lot more than those guys. Somebody who's been in the league for this long. I asked Eric Wilson today if he had played outside linebacker before, and he said, sometimes, along the way, a little bit for Green Bay last year, I think. Eric Wilson's a proven longtime NFL player, so that's the guy you want out on the field. I know everybody, we like the young players and so forth, but the undrafted guys, they need to develop. We said this about Levi Drake last year. It was like, hey, why isn't Levi out on the field? Well, give him time. Chambliss, Richter, Murphy, those guys, Batty, they're all still kind of figuring it out in the NFL. You want Wilson out there. So they've used Chambliss a tiny bit. They've used Richter a tiny bit. But you're going to see the veterans play for sure. KFT says there were a couple times where McCarthy did the overstriding thing through short. 100%. Yep, 100%. And when he does the overstriding thing, you could see it right away because it just doesn't come out with the same juice. The ball doesn't come out the same way. And you can actually see when his shoulders trying to make sure that I sort of think about this the right way. Like his shoulders will actually like go down. They will actually dip. And then it feels like the ball goes way down with it. And then he's coming back up. And I think it's hard to throw a football accurately or put all of your weight into it if your head is sort of moving around, your shoulders are moving around. Like you would much rather, when I did that story with Kurt Warner over the summer, and Kurt was telling me that everything started, and this is why you hear O'Connell say base all the time. He's got to have the right base. But Warner was saying it starts in the feet and you're driving into the ground and turning and driving off of that back foot as you're turning, and then the arm just comes along with you. He was saying he never felt like he was pushing the ball with his arm and shoulder, that his arm was coming along with his whole body that was rotating, and that was creating the velocity. So when you see the ball come down, the shoulders dip, and then he's pushing it, that's when it's not going to be accurate. So look, they're rebuilding somebody's throwing motion on the fly while asking him to win football games. It's not the easiest thing, but when he gets it right, gosh, it's good. It's very, very good when he gets it right. So I think you just have to accept that sometimes, just like with your golf shot, where let's say you're doing a lot more practice and you're out there working with Tiger Woods and he's showing you how to do it. Just because you're working with a great coach doesn't mean you're going to get it perfect. But what you're looking for is getting it better and more consistent. And you're still going to pull your head sometimes as a golfer, but you're not going to do it anywhere as much as you originally did. And that's what they're looking for him. KFT says, Bo Nix has the same limitations he had in college. Denver has designed their offense around his limitations. He is no Drew Brees. Well, nobody's no Drew Brees. Drew Brees is a top 15 quarterback in history. So yeah, that's a tough comp. Yeah, no, Nix is one where had a friend who used to come on the show a lot. Eric Eager used to be with PFF, now works for an NFL team. And he used to talk about how everyone was wrong about Cam Newton. And it was a good line because he was right. You know, people just either hated Cam Newton or loved him. They treated him like he was flawless or they treated him like he was garbage. And both people were wrong. He was not flawless, but he sure as heck was not garbage. He was an excellent quarterback who had the capability when he got hot throwing the football of being the best quarterback in the league. But he was not the best quarterback in the league. He was not untouchable. And he had one MVP season and he had a lot of other 500 type years where it was up and down. And that's Cam Newton, right? You can love Cam Newton and admit that he has flaws. And the same way kind of goes for Bo Nix, where it seems that people think because he's a winner and he is third in the league in touchdowns with 17, that he is just this superstar that is untouchable. And that's not the truth. Right now by PFF, let me see here. Guys with 50% of snaps, he's 18th by PFF. A little ahead of Jackson Dart, right behind Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence is kind of a good comp for him. Same ballpark as Caleb Williams. The touchdown stats help him. He is a good scrambler. He's just not the most consistently accurate, but your point is exactly right. They've worked that offense to just be right around him. It's how he needs to play. He was a quick pass guy who never took any sacks in college, and that's what they've got him doing now. Marauder says, used to do Patriots youth camps. Matt Light told me that Tom couldn't even play chess in the locker room without being ultra competitive to the point of throwing the board if he lost. Yeah, that's right, man. That's right. And you hear this about a lot of people who are total freaks. Now, you don't have to act like that, although even the top chess players sometimes lose it. And they've played hundreds of thousands of games, but even they still flip a board from time to time. But that's the thing, right? Like even at any sport, the elite chess players are psychotic. And I like to follow chess tournaments and top players and stuff like that. Total nutcases about chess. Hundreds of thousands of games. There's a streamer who will play for 8 hours straight on his live stream. I mean, like what? I stream for 2 hours and I'm like, man, you guys wore me out while it's football. This guy's out here playing chess.com for 8 straight hours and doing crazy. Like, that's how football players are, though. There was a story somebody told, and I'm trying to think, was it Dominique Foxworth? Might have been Dominique Foxworth, somebody, that they had gone to a wedding in, I don't know, Maui or something, right? And everybody stayed up all night at the wedding, partying, afterward and all that, the reception, and till morning, right? Watching the sun come up, partying in Maui. And the guy said it was like 6 a.m. He's still awake from the night before, been partying all night. And he sees on the beach Tom Brady throwing with somebody, and like really throwing, drop backs, like letting loose, not just tossing for fun, but like going through his entire workout after they had just had this wedding and it was Maui, it's the off season, whatever. And that's what Tom Brady's doing. Like that's what you're looking for in your quarterback. So if your quarterback seems really well adjusted, he might be putting on, maybe a face in front of the media, or he might not make it. There's just not too many. Even when you see like Eli and Peyton talk to each other about football, like the energy in that room when those guys talk football and the passion for that is just through the roof. That's why they're fun to watch. Like, they're funny and joke around, but they're nuts. They're nuts about football. Zoomer KO, did you see Kurt Warner say the Falcons offense makes him want to crash out? How can you have Bijan Robinson have the lowest play action in the league? Yeah, well, also, how can Zach Robinson, who I interviewed for my book, actually, Football is a Numbers Game, worked at PFF. And I do think that, with Michael Penix, you want to run out of the shotgun because that's what he's most comfortable with. But Zach, comes from the Sean McVay system, and just, I don't know, it might be a feel thing, a play calling thing. It might be a forest through the trees or trying a little too hard to be creative thing. I don't know. I haven't watched all of Atlanta's games. I have watched maybe 2 this year so far, so I haven't studied their tape. But that is really surprising. Let me take a look at where, and Penix is not graded very well this year. I think because he has not had the number of big time throws that he did last year. So are they trying to protect him with quick stuff all the time when he's really a downfield type of passer? I don't know. It's an interesting question. Let me look at drop back percentage with play. Yeah, lowest in the league. Lowest in the league for Michael Penix. That's usually a system from McVay that has a lot of play action. I don't understand that. It's a great question. Mama says Anthony Edwards is a psycho. Oh, yeah, totally. Yep. Anthony Edwards and JJ McCarthy, McCarthy keeps the language in check, unlike Anthony Edwards at times. But there's similarities there. Yep, there's definitely similarities there. Let's see. Marauder says, is O'Connell getting Ingram fired, or are we going to the NFC Championship? Who is Ingram? I don't know who that is. Are you going to the NFC Championship? Maybe. This would be the year. You'll have to tell me who you mean for getting someone fired. Justin says, I survived the LA game. Thank you, Vikings. Thanks for calling me tough last week. Yeah. Well, hey, look, this is why I knew that you guys wouldn't disappear. I heard this from a lot of you, and I saw it. I'm checking out. I just can't take it anymore. And you are so freaking back. This franchise knows exactly how to do that. Exactly how to, right when you're about to bail, right when you've had enough, then they're like, oh, but what about this? It's like, I don't know, 2009 to 2010, you have Favre do the thing, and maybe you're like, I can't do it anymore. And then Favre says, I'm back. And you're like, we're so back. Look, it's Minnesota Vikings fans. If you're still here, that means you're here. Like, don't even pretend you're not. I think the biggest difference, though, is the amount that you feel like hearing about it. I could see being different. So I'm not saying if you don't download this show, you are not a real Vikings fan. I understand that if the team is 3-4 and Carson Wentz and you lost by 27 points and it seems like the season is over, it's like, yeah, I don't know if I want to listen to a 2-hour show. I get that. And some of you are also psychos who want to listen and talk about the front office and everything, which is great. And I'm glad to have you. But I get the sentiment of just feeling broken by this team. But the new energy that has been pumped into this team, the locker room, the franchise, the fan base by that win in Detroit, they got to build on it. And I think you got to win at least 2 out of the next 4. But suddenly, no matter what happens going forward, it became interesting again. It became, oh, this is watchable every Sunday. Even if it doesn't go perfectly, this is something you want to see. Zoomer KO, what do you think of a Baker Mayfield comp to McCarthy? Mobility and competitive energy. I like that. The big difference there is pretty simple. Well, McCarthy's a little bigger. The big difference is that Baker Mayfield is from day one, from college, super accurate with the football. Now, he hasn't always been flawless with that in the NFL, and I think that his size has something to do with it. But actually throwing, the touch, the downfield passing, the fitting it into windows, the anticipation. I mean, he's kind of more of a marksman than JJ McCarthy. So but the competitive energy and stuff, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I think Mayfield came out with too much of a chip on his shoulder where he was just kind of being a bit of a jerk early in his career. Maybe, look, when a quarterback early in his career, and this is like the rewriting of Baker Mayfield, it's like, oh, he was always cool and it was just his teams. Not always. And he's grown up, and I think he's admitted that. He would come out and say some stuff early in his career. We'd be like, dude, what? What are you doing? It wouldn't go over well in the locker room, wouldn't go over well with the team. I think there was some entitled elements to him. That chip on the shoulder could be too big. And so I think McCarthy is farther ahead when it comes to that, like in terms of his overall attitude, where Mayfield's has changed to be more like McCarthy, actually, these days. Let's see. KFT hoping the O-line is better this week. Hopefully they are getting healthy. So I thought the O-line did a really good job last week. I honestly think that McCarthy, well, I don't just think this is also the grading as well. Like, I think he walked his way into a lot of those pressures last week and a lot of those sacks last week. And not to say that they didn't get beat at all up front, but if you're looking at for last week, and I'm going to try to pull this up here in week 9. McCarthy was given 2 of his own sacks, and maybe there were free runners and nobody was assigned some of the other ones. But I thought that he was responsible for a couple of the sacks and a couple of the pressures, get rid of the football. Overall, they played well enough to win up front, and they need to be at that level. But you're never going to expect someone to be perfect as far as the offensive line. But I thought they were much closer to the version we expected them to be. And they're playing Aiden Hutchinson. The Ravens don't have Aiden Hutchinson. That's like a complete different type of dude. Ahmed, JJ's stat line for the FanDuel question of the day. His over-under is 205 yards on FanDuel, 197 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 1 heart in mouth runs that ends with him barely avoiding a big hit. Yeah, probably. Son of Beavers, what game was I watching from 97? It was actually Vikings and Lions at Detroit. So I didn't know what the result was. I like to just look at, I go to YouTube, type in what a matchup or something. Sometimes it'll be just, hey, Monday Night Football 2003, something like that. So I just typed in before I got on the plane, Vikings, Lions, 97. I didn't remember what happened in that game, and it was a complete blowout. The Vikings lost. It was a terrible game. I didn't know that, though. So I would watch it, and you learn something every single time. You learn about the seasons for the teams and how down Detroit was that year, and they came back, and watching Barry Sanders go off was fun, and Herman Moore and that, those guys. So it was fun to watch and listen to the broadcasters talk about the different storylines from that point in the season. It's probably my favorite thing about watching old games is to be like, oh yeah, right. Like that was happening. Brad Johnson had gotten hot. So they were talking about how Brad Johnson's been amazing coming into this game and then kind of melted down in that game. So yeah, it was interesting, but not one that you would remember, I think. Marauder says JJ's going under 230, but 3 touchdowns again. Could see that. Jay has 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Nicholas has, for the FanDuel question of the day, 234, 2 touchdowns, 1 touchdown run, and an interception. Yeah, there's going to be probably, a mistake mixed in there, but you can't have multiple mistakes. You can't have a bunch of them. You can't get like a little bit out over your skis there, like I thought he did in the second quarter and kind of got away with it. Not a twerk bird eyes. Wonder what that helmet would look like. Well, a lot of guys with the bird eyes, a lot of them have such amazing instincts that they just sense stuff. They know it's there. They catch the tiniest little micro glimpse of something and understand it. Andrew Van Ginkel today said to us that when he got knocked down, now imagine you get drilled by somebody running full speed, you get thrown to the ground. He still saw where the linemen were and was like, oh, this is a screen. So I know that the runner might be coming my way, and turned himself around and made the tackle. That's having eyes in the back of your head. That's just being completely freakish when it comes to your instincts. So that's what you have to be, I think, when it comes to being a great player in the NFL. You have to have instincts where you just understand. And everything with talent is like this way. Great musicians, I could teach you how to play guitar in 2 weeks, but great musicians have some sort of instinct that's built in and hardwired into them that no one can really understand. Great golfers. I know every person knows that person that when they were 8, I have a friend who's a sports writer in Buffalo whose son is like a prodigy golfer. And from the time that the kid was like 6, he was better than me. Like, who knows? Why does that happen? What in his DNA? You have to have that, I think, with football to be great at this game. Not just speed, not just, pure power and stuff like that. Let's see. I got to start pumping some Purple Insider merch. Yeah, it's hard. It's like keeping up with everything. Keeping up with, going out to the press conferences, doing the show, doing the articles, purpleinsider.football. If you want to support the show, designing t-shirts is pretty far down on the list, but maybe someday, maybe in the summer. Zoomer KO, are the Packers cooked without Tucker Kraft? Cooked would be a little bit too aggressive for me. I think they could still win the division. Tucker Kraft, I don't want to say, to say that Tucker Kraft's success was all scheme would be wrong. He's great with the football in his hands. His average depth of target was like 4.5 yards. So they were getting him the ball really quickly, and then he was creating after the catch, and some of that was schematic. I don't think it's impossible to recreate some of that. I do think they're going to miss, I know it's weird, but miss Ben Sims a little bit as there is some of their depth. It will hurt them. I don't think it will destroy them. They still strike me as like a 10 or 11 win type of team. Aaron, never forget when someone said in training camp that Eric Wilson would be cut before the season started. He's been a top 5. Yeah, I don't remember who said that. Did a commenter say that? I've always been an Eric Wilson guy. We demand 8-hour live streams that go for your entire workday. Yeah, well, you'd have to bring Buddy downstairs. Yeah, I'd have to bring you on walks with Buddy. I'd have to bring you out to the TCO Performance Center. I guess maybe a vlog someday is what I need to do. An 8-hour vlog, and then I'll just run it on the live stream. Sam says Tom Brady was every Vikings fan when he said when the Vikings got first down and goal at the 3, now the Vikings should give the ball to Jordan Mason, and then watched as perplexed as KO went pass. Yeah. And O'Connell, look, he is right that McCarthy needs to get down in that spot. That's an inexperienced type of mistake. But I think it does say that like the play is designed to either throw it to TJ Hockenson or basically kneel down and then kick the field goal. It's not designed to run out of bounds. So maybe, sometimes when we talk about play calls, this is a hard thing. This is why I hate going down that road of play calls sometimes, because I'm like, well, the play is designed to throw it to Hockenson or slide down, right? And then kick a field goal and you'll be fine, and keep the clock running. But then the player runs out of bounds. And it's funny because the Jerry Burns rant, if you've never seen it, the Jerry Burns rant from 1989 came up today because it happened on this day in 1989. And one of the things that Jerry Burns is ranting about and going crazy and saying it's not Bob Schelker's fault and, using the F word about 300 times, is the offensive coordinator getting blamed for stuff where players make mistakes. And he's saying, well, this guy made a stupid play and this guy threw the ball low on this. And that's where, with the play calling, sometimes a player makes a mistake that we don't even know about. And we go, why'd you call that play? And maybe, the quarterback saw it wrong, receiver ran a wrong route, something happens, or there's some bad luck on the play. In that case, JJ McCarthy just needed to slide, and he didn't. And then it looks bad on the play caller. Aaron says the Penix and London connection is crazy good. Yeah, no, it has been. And that's where if they, I think, could push the ball down the field, Atlanta's offense could be dangerous. But they seem to want to be going with this really short type of stuff. And I don't really fully understand it. I think him running play action out of the shotgun would probably be a little bit better. Jay saying you're enjoying the content and you followed the Vikings for a long time. It's great to hear. Great to hear. Really appreciate that. I really appreciate all of you dropping by. Big audience here tonight for the stream. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully also you saw that I talked with Steve Palazzolo from the Check the Mic podcast. Great breakdown of the NFC North, the front office kind of thought process going back to the offseason with the Vikings and how it looks right now and how all of it's changed and things like that. Really good conversation. Steve's one of, I think, the smartest people out there talking about football. So we did that earlier. You can go check that out. Let's see, KFT, if KOC has a good game plan for JJ, he will be okay, especially if the O-line is good. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it all week. I'll probably say it the rest of the year. First 15 plays, if you can execute them and get on the board, play from ahead, JJ McCarthy will be okay. If you're asking him to play from behind, if there's mistakes early, if you're asking him to throw you back into games, that's going to be a lot harder. In 3 years, maybe even next year, yeah, you could probably do that. Right now, I don't think he's in a spot where he can do that. Mike says, you were bang on about Wilson this summer. Thought he'd be good depth. Definitely left his mark. Yeah, I mean, I had the advantage of covering Eric before, and he was just widely loved and appreciated by the Vikings before. And there's a few teammates that are still around and remember him. He's a quiet guy. He's not the most talkative. He's not going to be out there, having a lot of press conferences and, on whatever, social media, hyping himself up or anything else like that. Just goes about his business. But he's a very good football player. And there's a lot to be said for guys who can do multiple things. And that's Brian Flores' philosophy, and that's kind of why he's here. Zoomer KO, the Jerry Burns rant is so good. They can't show it on ESPN. No, there's just too many beeps. It would get annoying with the number of F-bombs that he dropped. Did we fix the kickoff? I don't think anyone's talking about it. It's great to have it back. I think so. Yeah, I think so. It looks a little different. And I think at first people were like, I don't like anything new. And I understand this. I don't like change either. They changed the Halloween baking championship and I almost lost it. If somebody knows what I'm talking about there, I would love that. But, like no one, it's the game you love. You don't like a whole lot of change. But once you kind of get used to how it initially looks, the play just starts and it's a kick return. And 70% of kicks are getting returned these days. Kick returners are back. I love the fact that Miles Price is a player on the Minnesota Vikings. It's great because that guy wouldn't be here. They would just throw Ty Chandler or whatever running back there, or they cut Kenny Wongwu. They didn't care about it. And it's like, why should you? The guy's going to get 10 returns a year. Now that's a real player with real value. And guys who are special teams tacklers are going to matter too. Players are going to develop more because they actually could get out there and make plays. It's great. I love having it back. Is it perfect? Probably not. But there's that whole like perfect and enemy of good kind of thing. This is good. It's good to have this be a real play. And you can't just, run to the refrigerator and make an entire meal while you're waiting for football to come back anymore. KFT, did Samuels leave Carolina? At least from the reports, it sounds like he's scheduled to meet with 5 or 6 teams. I don't have the whole list. Green Bay was on it. The Vikings were on it. In front of me right now, but I think he's going to do the whole tour first and then make a decision. That's at least what it sounds like. So, Oh, okay. Oh, Not a Twerk says the comment earlier about firing or NFC Championship game relates to every time we've lost to the Ravens, we fired a coach. Every time we've won NFC Championship game. Okay. That I was just not following that one. Yeah, I did see that. I did see someone brought that up to me. That there's been that coincidence. I gotcha. Yeah, okay, Marauder, you know what I'm talking about. The baking championships, they changed them. And I just didn't like it as much. I didn't like it the same way. Yeah, the sudden death thing. It's like you didn't I like the initial challenge. It's not quite 9 o'clock yet. That was our rule, right? After 9. It's the initial challenge, and then somebody gets an advantage, and then they have the real bake off. But then they did it an opposite way where you have all the best bakers standing around watching as 2 of the worst bakers or 3 of the worst bakers bake off. And you're like, I don't want to watch these people. These are the bad people. Just get rid of them. Didn't like that. I don't know if you've watched the holiday one yet, but if it's the same way, that's going to be really annoying. Anyway, if you're rewatching and have not thought about that FanDuel question of the day as you've been listening along, leave it in the comments. 205.5 for JJ McCarthy is the over-under for him for this game. And what do you think his stat line is going to be against the Ravens? Garrett says, is Josh Oliver and CJ Ham available for the Baltimore game? Does not seem like Josh Oliver. CJ Ham seems possible. Huge for the offense. I think it's huge for the pass pro to have CJ Ham back. Yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't seen the SNL Bake Off stuff. I have not seen that. Not a whole lot of time to watch anything except for football these days. The Broncos are wearing their throwback uniforms. Let's just leave it that way. That's when you talk about change. Ultimately, good things will just always come back. The Broncos unis, the Tampa Bay unis. Let's just leave it that way. Anyway, let's see. So tomorrow night we'll have Manny Hill picks the schedule, and I'll probably go live again. I'm assuming tomorrow night. Continue to answer questions and bring you updates from TCO Performance Center. I'll be out there for coordinators, so we'll see what we could take away from the kick return and the penalties. I did ask about that last week, and we got a full breakdown, but, I'm sure we'll discuss it more again with Matt Daniels, Wes Phillips, Brian Flores on how the defense was different, the return of Andrew Van Ginkel, and how much of a difference that made. Lots to discuss. Usually Justin Jefferson talks on Thursday, so we'll hear from him about McCarthy's first start. I'll bring you a lot of that from there, the injury report, any more updates and things that happened around the league, so we'll have a good time then. But can't thank you guys enough for a great chat. It's fantastic. Great questions, great comments, thoughts. And, that's why I enjoy doing this is nights like tonight where we can have a really good conversation and mix in a little bit of holiday baking championships. So anyway, thanks for watching and listening. Can't make this an 8-hour one. Got to go right a little bit. Purpleinsider.football. Make sure you check it out if you have not yet so far. And we will see you all tomorrow night. Thanks for watching / listening, everyone. See you then.